Hello, hello. Good morning. Good morning, Onion Lake. Welcome back to another episode of our 7 Gen podcast. Today, this morning, I'm here with our Chief Electoral Officer. His name is Billy Turner. Um, as you all know out there, we have a Chief and Council election coming up. October 22nd is the nomination date and November 5th is the election date. So I think with that, we'll get into this. So for starters, for Mr. Turner, can you start by introducing yourself and your role as the Chief Electoral Officer for Onion Lake Cree Nation?
Yes, of course, Fraser. Thanks for having me here today. Yes, my name is Billy Turner. I'm Gwich'in in Inuvialuit. I grew up in Elk Point, not too far from Onion Lake, but my mom's side of the family is from Inuvik, Northwest Territories, Tuktoyaktuk, Fort McPherson in the northern part of the Northwest Territories. So that's our traditional territory up there on my mom's side. And then on my father's side is a Métis from the Brooks area. She's got a bit of family in Siksika, tied to southern Alberta in that regard. But yeah, like I said, I grew up in Oak Point, not too far from Onion Lake. I went and did a degree in political science at the University of Calgary. And then just about 10 years ago from the University of Alberta, I finished a degree in law. And this year I've been appointed as the Chief Electoral Officer for this year's 2025 Onion Lake elections. So I'll be overseeing that whole process.
Right on. Welcome aboard. Thanks for doing this episode with me today. I
Yeah,
think it's
well,
really, I think it's really important to keep our community updated, especially with the whole nomination process.
yeah.
Before we get into this, I know I've been asked questions regarding the Election Act. Where can people find it? I talked to our treaty governance office. You can find the Election Act over there. I'll read the phone number here. We have 306 And you could access it through email, francis.alexan@onionlake.ca, francis.alexan@onionlake.ca. So you could find it over there, and like Billy showed us on the screen there, the document you'll be getting looks like what he showed us there.
Yeah, hopefully there's some coffee on this one.
That's
But yeah, we'll
clean.
talk a bit about some of the parts in here today, right, Fraser?
You betcha. So the next question I have, for those who might not know, can you briefly explain what the electoral office does during an election period?
Uh, well, during an election period, there's no chief and council, and there's no real decision making and political authority. So, to avoid a bit of that vacuum of power, if you will, the chief electoral officer is given the authority to oversee the polling process to get the will of the people to get the next term of leadership in office. The other thing too is that the electoral officer swears an oath to uphold the election law. I think Onion Lake's really fortunate to have such a thorough and detailed election law. It's pretty good and it's easy to follow compared to other communities out there. So the role of the chief electoral officer is to help the community, oversee the processes, make sure that the election is done properly within the word of the law that's written for Onion Lake, and then also to help really gather that will of the people for the next leadership.
Awesome. Why is the upcoming chief and council election important for our community?
Well, for really any community, you always got to have a renewal of the will of the people, or like any kind of politics. It's a fundamental aspect of democracy to keep the people in power that are that have the permission of the people. Right? You can't govern the people without the will of the people to be governed. Specifically, we always need political leadership at the national level to represent the community and to enforce their sovereignty, our own laws, in face of provincial, federal governments, and then upholding treaty rights and promoting reconciliation appropriately to other aspects of Canadian society. So it's important not only within the community but externally to to show the rest of the country that we're still a sovereign nation governing ourselves with our own laws.
Mhm. Awesome. So moving on, let's start with the nominations. When and where will the nomination meeting take place?
So the nomination meeting is scheduled for October 21st, and it'll be held in Onion Lake community there, I believe, at the arena. We'll get set up. But the meeting is going to be held there, and it'll be approximately between like 6 or 8 p.m. Shouldn't take that long. So in a couple weeks, really, on a Wednesday night.
Just a correction on that, October 22nd.
Is it? All right. Sorry about that. I wasn't quite sure. So yeah, October 22nd. So when the evening, we'll have the
Yeah.
nomination meeting and get that on record. And then the following day, I'll post the eligible candidates to be on the ballot.
Did they provide a location yet for that? Did they usually I think it's we have two halls now. One is the new round hall, one is the old round hall, and one is the communiplex hall. So we actually have three here.
Okay,
I'm
I
kind of
think it's
thinking,
well, we haven't really locked it down yet, but I guess, but I just assumed it was going to be where the Communiplex there, right beside Subway.
yeah, okay. Yeah, maybe that info will become, but when we do find out on our end, we could provide a notice to the community just
Yeah, we'll
confirming
we'll
the
be posting it
location.
once we confirm. Like we're still in the process of appointing clerks and some other electoral officials to help with the polling day. But like I'm basically the official notice guy, the poster for. So when we lock down the location, it'll be on October 22nd, and an official notice will go out. But it'll only be a couple hours, and it's an exciting meeting in itself.
Yes, sir. Who is eligible to nominate someone and who can be nominated?
You have to be a community member, Onion Lake citizen, to nominate, right? Nominate and second. Just looking at the law here. So similar to voting rights, right? All citizens are eligible to vote, and you're a citizen regardless of your residency. So we've seen in previous custom election codes residency requirements. You had to live on the res or within the community to be able to participate in the elections. And some courts across the country have treated this as a breach of charter rights, as well as um, consistent with the will of the people to govern themselves. But Onion Lake's pretty fortunate again in that regard. You don't have to live in the community to be eligible to vote or nominate.
All right. Next question. Are there any key requirements or documents needed for nominees?
Yes. Um, so we've already posted and released a couple notices of the documents required. One off the bat is a criminal record check confirming no convictions of indictable offenses within the last 5 years. So prior to October 22nd, 2020, any of those on record will not be considered. are deemed the nominee ineligible to be on the ballot. The second document is a child welfare check. So we released some information yesterday of where to get these letters, the band hall, and who to email. The child welfare check, same thing. It's got to confirm there's no convictions of indictable offenses for the last 5 years prior to nomination. And this is all under the Onion Lake election law, section 10.7. Subsection C also says that you need a confirmation letter signed by the director of finance, verifying either that they are not indebted to Onion Lake or any of its associations, societies, or business entities, or that they have a written payment plan in place with Onion Lake, which is in good standing for at least 6 months. So you can't be indebted to the nation. So they just got to get a letter confirming that down at the band hall. And then the last thing that nominees will have to have before getting on the ballot is this candidate's acknowledgement and covenant. Just a form that we'll have at that day, where you can pick it up beforehand. So those 4 things, and I've already released probably 2 notices of this, and we've made steps for the RCMP to be aware that there's going to be an influx of people applying for these criminal record checks. So they're prepared to have those out within a couple of days for potential nominees. And then also we also have a draft letter set up for potential nominees regarding the child welfare check and the a letter of good standing from finance.
Mm-hmm.
So yes.
Okay.
Those 4
Yeah.
documents.
Okay. I have some questions around that. Just from prior experience, I was actually involved as a candidate in the past couple elections here. And I know there's some key questions or some clarity around the documents. So I think just for clarity for the membership, number one, the indictable offense, the criminal record check. I know the past 2 times when I ran and I got the criminal record check back, there's like check boxes on there,
Yeah.
and the common one is possible match.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if you have any thoughts around that. I have some thoughts around that, like some interpretations. When I spoke to the constable the past couple of times, 2 different constables, the same kind of answer they gave me. So I could relay that in this discussion. The
Yeah.
other one, in like, so going back to indictable offense, possible match. The other common question is like DUI. Does that disqualify you? So those could be up for discussion here.
Okay.
the
All
other
right.
one, the other one is the good financial standing. I know there's some common questions in there and interpretations of that, but we could jump to that one next. I think for now I'll just focus on the crim check and the vulnerable sector check. So going back to indictable offense and
Okay.
possible match.
So I understand what you're saying, Fraser. It is not too detailed, really, right, with the criminal record check. Um, so one distinction we have to make here is between indictable offenses and summary offenses. A lot of the summary offenses, to the extent that they can be determined from a criminal record check, don't render a potential nominee ineligible to be on the ballot. But so the possible match, it does present a bit of problems. And usually under election law, if it's absent within the law or in the case law, there is room for or discretion for the electoral officer to make a decision. So So yeah, possible match. It's very difficult because they also don't give a timeline, right? So
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe we could work with them and see if we can get a little bit more disclosure on that aspect, specifically just for the indictable offenses, right? So in criminal
Hmm.
law, indictable offenses are offenses that are punishable for a longer period of time. They're generally considered more serious offenses under the Criminal
Hmm.
Code of Canada. And
Yeah.
summary offenses will include lesser morally culpable offenses like DUI sometimes is not really an indictable offense anymore, and then also tickets and provincial offenses, regulatory offenses, stuff like that. So the indictable ones are just a little bit more serious. We want to make sure you didn't do anything you know criminally in the last 5 years. That's really what we're trying to get to. Just make sure that we have a good slate of candidates that the community can trust and is a good role model for the community as well. So
Hmm.
that's kind of what we have to say about the possible match. And then you had a question. You have a question about the child welfare, the vulnerable sector check, right? Same sort of thing. Want to make sure that there's no questionable activity of the candidates. A pattern of behavior from any candidate, and that they're a good
Hmm.
role model. So this is kind of what these two parts of the law are really trying to get, is to trying to just help get good candidates for the community to choose from to be their leader.
Yeah.
So
Um.
what did those officers say regarding your question?
Yeah. 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 So when I spoke to them, I think the key area of like elimination or disqualification for candidacy is, like you said, is the indictable offense portion, which is like the higher level crimes.
Yeah.
I don't know the examples around that, but people could easily Google that, right?
Yeah, man,
Um,
like manslaughter, murder,
yeah,
some those
like
offenses where
this,
your sentence is over 2 years.
yeah, yeah.
Eligible.
So, when I spoke, so going back to the possible match, because the possible match, like that's a common one, and I asked him about that, like what if it's just a like a parking ticket or a speeding ticket or whatever. And then
Yeah.
they said, well, it's not an indictable offense, so it shouldn't disqualify you from running. And if a person like is questionable or like it, with the RCMP, you can ask for a criminal record check, which details your criminal record, and like if you're unsure on the seriousness of your offenses. But obviously, like you said, like something like manslaughter, like we all know, right?
Yeah.
Things like that, like it's public records out there. um so indictable offenses, possible match. So just for the viewers out there, if you have parking tickets and speeding tickets and stuff like that, you might come up as a possible match. And in order to access the more detailed criminal record check, there's a process with the RCMP, and the turnaround time on that could be up to 6 months. So, how does that, um, like, if a person gets elected and they're going through that, what happens then, right? Is the question. But I think
Okay.
common sense tells us, like, if it's a possible match, and they qualify to be a candidate on the nomination and the election, and they get elected, if there's like, I think there's an appeal process if people, like, I don't know for sure, but
Yeah,
um
well, there exactly, Fraser. There is so there is a section within the election law to remove somebody from office, which is really which is good. And right, so it's under section 6, talking about removal from office, and some they can be removed from or disqualified from candidacy, for the next couple elections if they violate this law, code of ethics, stuff like that, fail to attend meetings, fail to meet a standard of conduct expected by the people, have been convicted of an indictable offense since their election, so engages in such other conduct as may be determined to be of serious nature that removal is necessary or appropriate. So even if somebody that did get in and afterwards it was found out that they did have an indictable offense within the last 5 years and that they were ineligible and meet from candidacy, there are procedures to remove them from office here within the election law. So there's a proceedings in 6.2. So so yeah, I mean, somebody wants to put themselves through that, you know. But generally, the election law is pretty robust. It's meant to catch things like this and to deter people from running who otherwise wouldn't be eligible, or shouldn't be eligible, I guess, and
Mhm.
based on the
Yeah.
wishes of these laws. So yeah, it's pretty good. But you're right, that is a little bit. So we got to catch all clause, right? If somebody shouldn't have been a candidate, there's an appeal process in the election, and then there's also within the election law procedures to remove somebody from office after the election.
Okay. Yeah, no,
So
that's good. I think in other words, like just for the viewers out there that are wanting to run, don't be discouraged with the possible match if you know you're not a bad person and you know you're guilty of a driving ticket or offense or whatever. Like you could run and then there's ways to kind of flush that out anyway afterwards. So people
yeah,
will know already ahead of time, right? Like you said,
I,
to not put
yeah,
themselves through that.
yeah, I had somebody email me the other day asking about this question too, whether say they had the start of the procedure for obtaining a record suspension, and that they do have say a record within the last 5 years, but they're getting a record suspension, would they be ineligible? And I had to say, well, I mean, as long as their record wasn't in the last 5 years, they're not ineligible. But just simply applying for a record suspension doesn't make you eligible because you're not guaranteed to get that record suspension, right?
Yeah.
So just having a letter of proof that you're getting a record suspension wouldn't really help that situation. But so there is some questions about it. But like I've heard elders say, like, you can't make a good person whole when you're constantly reminding them how bad a person they used to be, right? So we all got an opportunity to have a second chance at opportunities in life, right? Potential is only unlocked through opportunity. So it's good. This law, like I said, this law is good. We've got things, backup clauses to protect it, and then we should encourage people to run if they feel like they can provide that service to the community,
Yeah.
and be that political representation for the community as well. So it's a really good law. People should apply, right? If there's things in your past, you're a good person now. Everybody deserves kind of a second chance, right? Right, Fraser?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I like it. I love it. So I think we did that one. We'll move on to the next one. The good financial standing. I know there's different interpretations of that when people read that. Um the big one, and just from prior experience, right? The past couple of go rounds. Um what does that mean, good financial standing? And I asked that question, and the answer that I got was, it doesn't mean you don't owe the band, it doesn't mean you have a zero balance towards the band. Maybe you just recently got a loan or got help somehow, some way, you made some kind of deal. It doesn't mean you're disqualified. What the good financial standing, I think what they're looking for is that you made a deal, you agreed to a repayment plan, and you're following that plan.
Yeah,
You're qualified to run. It's if you have an outstanding debt and you're not paying it, you're not dealing with it, then I think that
yeah.
disqualifies you. So
Yeah, if you went delinquent on your payment plan. So again, here on section 10.7, subsection C, it says a confirmation letter from the director of finance. But exactly like you said, it's not necessarily if anybody has debt, they're disqualified from being a candidate. It's that they have a plan and that they're following the plan, and so they're servicing that debt in an orderly fashion, like it says here. You know, that they have a written repayment plan in place, which is in good standing for at least 6 months. So, if you get a little bit of credit if you've been making a payment plan for half a year, you're in good stand. Then you're in good standing that you're qualified for a confirmation letter from the director of finance. So, it's not just simply having debt disqualifies you. You're right about that.
So just for clarity again, just for the viewers out there, the in order to access your criminal record check and your vulnerable sector check, a requirement from the RCMP office is sorry, I got distracted here.
A letter,
Uh
yeah.
you need a letter from Onion Lake Human Resources. So for the
Yeah.
viewers out there, contact the band office 344 4200. Ask for our human resource office and let them know your desire to want to run for candidacy, and they can provide you with a letter of good stand or no referral letter from Onion Lake Human Resource Office. You take that letter to the RCMP station. They'll give you a criminal record check and a vulnerable sector check. The other one, the letter of good financial standing. Again, call the band office, ask for the finance department, and they can provide you with that letter. And then come nomination day, bring that good financial standing letter, your crim check, and vulnerable sector. Um, I think that's all I got for
Yeah,
that.
that's pretty much what we released yesterday. That we've gotten extended service times from the RCMP, for this purpose. So Tuesdays and Wednesdays are open 8:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Thursdays 1 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. And like you said, Fraser, you can get a referral letter from the Onion Lake Human Resources, which is required for both of these checks. And that's the first step to being an nominee. Pick that up from the Human Resources officer.
Yeah. Just I just want to echo what you said. The RCMP office is extending their hours for this purpose. It was effective yesterday. So yesterday and today, next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then the following week, Tuesday, Wednesday. So technically you have 5 days within the next 3 weeks to get these documents. Encouragement to get them as soon as possible, because I think it takes up to a week before you can receive the crim check and vulnerable sector. So like you don't want to be delayed, or you don't want to miss the bus on that, right?
Yeah, no, they usually take about a week, like you said. But I think because there's an influx, and for the purposes of the selection, we contacted them a little bit early, and that they're trying to have, they might not, they're trying to have a turnaround of 1 or 2 days specifically for these checks.
Nice.
Um, so that's pretty good. I mean, still, don't leave it to the last minute, even though, right? Because it could take longer than 5 days. And we got this nomination day coming up here on the 22nd, and that's essentially is the deadline at 5 o'clock. Once that meeting starts, you don't have those documents, you will be ineligible to be on the ballot the next day. Yeah.
There you have it, folks. I had there's a question here. I don't know if you could see it, but I could read it for us,
Yeah.
Billy.
Let's hear it.
It says, "Can you explain further the impaired driving?" So number one, impaired driving. Number two, indictable. Number three, not indictable. Further clarity is what they're seeking.
Okay, well, to delve a little bit into criminal law here. So, impaired driving previously was under the Criminal Code of Canada, and was potentially an indictable offense. Since then, the Alberta government has really taken it over now and turn it into basically what they call it an administrative penalty. So basically, they penalize your driver's license based on evidence of impaired driving. So it's basically a ticket now with with uh, with an increasing penalty each time you're caught. First year, they suspend your license for a specific amount of time. The second time that you're found to be impaired driving, it's longer, and then eventually they'll just suspend your license. But so that's not an indictable offense anymore, where it used to be a few years ago, like in the late 1900s here, up until then. So but there was a backlog of criminal defense lawyers defending these. So the Alberta government, to kind of get through that backlog and open up the courts a bit more, took it under their own administration and deemed it to be an administrative penalty and a ticketed offense, right? So there was some pushback from the criminal trial lawyers, but it's still within the charter rights for the government to operate this way. So consistent and doesn't infringe citizens' charter rights that way. So that's the DUI thing. So right now it's not an indictable offense. The DUI is not going to prevent you from really getting, uh, nominated on the ballot here. Going back again, so indictable offenses versus non-indictable offenses, which are called summary offenses. The main distinction between those two offenses is the categories. They're categorized in the criminal code, and indictable offenses are again more serious nature offenses that are eligible for higher punishment, right? So the Crown can seek longer and more varied ways of punishment for indictable, more serious offenses, versus summary offense, where it's usually, if they're seeking jail time, it's under 2 years, and it could be also a fine or both, or community service, or all three. So those are the summary and non-indictable offenses, or less serious nature offenses that are generally, also provincial offenses. So hopefully that clears up something for that person's question there.
Yeah. I googled some examples. I could read them off here.
All right.
Just to maybe provide more clarity. It says here violent crimes, murder, first, second, manslaughter, aggravated assault causing bodily harm, robbery, kidnapping, attempted murder. So things like that.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of puts it into perspective, right? Versus a parking ticket.
Yeah, it was it's a criminal law question. But yeah, that's what it says in the election law. No indictable offenses in the last 5 years to be eligible.
Awesome. That's all I got for that piece. Do you have anything you want to add to that, or we'll move on?
Yeah, we can move on. That's good for that.
Okay. What are some common mistakes people make during the nomination process that you'd like to remind the community to avoid?
Well, I mean, some of the common things there, just be informed. Just want people to be well informed about the process, right? We have to have two nominators. The candidate, the nominee has to accept it, and then I believe they'll be given, each of the nominees will be given a couple minutes to explain why they nominate the candidate, and then the candidate, I believe, will get 5 minutes 5 minutes on the mic to talk about their campaign, their candidacy, why they want it, why they're accepting the nomination. So it'll be a bit of a formal meeting. It's, like I said, it's always fun. I'm a bit of a political science nerd, so I find elections exciting, even though I don't vote too much. And this is a really unique area of politics and law in Indigenous communities, right? You got politics happening, but you also got the process of law as, say, an exercise of Indigenous rights. So I like it. It's really unique. But I just like to remind all the nominators and the nominees out there, just kind of be informed about the election law prior to hand. So you know what to expect, and that they got all their documents ahead of time. Because some people make a mistake, they don't read the law, and then they show up and say, "Oh, well, I didn't know I had to have that document by 5 o'clock today," or somebody just wanted me to get nominated a couple days ago, so I didn't have time, and then try to make excuses. But like, this is a little bit more serious than that. You got to take it serious. It's not just a job. You're being a political representative for the community, so you got to be informed about what the law is. So basically, that's about it for that part.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome. Once nominations are complete, what happens next in terms of verifying and posting the official candidates?
So once me and the electoral team come up and verify that all the nominees are eligible under the election law, a list of names that will be on the ballot will be posted in the community the following day. So the 23rd, the ballot, the names that will be on the ballots, and then will be posted, and then the campaign will ensue there until the polling day. So yeah, so after that, you'll have a couple weeks to campaign, uh, gain your support. I believe there's going to be um, someone's going to organize. I'm not going to organize it. It's not under my capacity or a job as an electoral officer to organize and manage like a debate between the candidates. But I believe that will be happening within that 2 weeks. The candidates will be given an opportunity to do some campaigning to the community. But yeah, so the following day we'll post the list of names that will be on the ballot after the nomination meeting.
Awesome. Um, so moving on to the election process, just for the viewers, as we all know, the election date is November 5th. So question to you, Mr. Turner, when and where will the voting take place on November 5th? And I think we all know the answer to that, to be confirmed, right?
Yeah. Well, no, I secured. Let's see here. So a polling station in Edmonton. There'll be a polling station in Saskatoon, and then we'll be running the poll as well within the community there at Onion Lake. We'll post details on that. In Edmonton, the polling station will be at the Edmonton Inn. I believe that's where it was last election. So the Edmonton Inn, and I'll be open. I think we're going to run polls from 9 to about 6 o'clock for the ones in the city. So that's the same thing with Saskatoon. The Saskatoon polling station will be held at the Travel Lodge. So can't miss it. It's a big hotel there by the south of the airport. But so that polling station as well will be open from about 9 to 6 p.m. because afterwards we got to gather the votes. The Onion Lake polling station will be open a little bit longer for community members. So that will be open probably at 9. So I think about what is it? To about 8. I think 8 we're closing. So then we count immediately after, right? So moving on. So that's where all the polling stations will be, and when they'll be open on November 5th for citizens.
Question. Will there be advanced polls or mail-in voting options available this year?
No, basically, it's not too much under the election law. We didn't prepare for it, and I know other communities have done mail-in ballots, but they were set up, and they have we need mailing addresses, so that those options aren't available for this election in this term. But Yeah. So advanced polls, we're not doing any, and mail out ballots are not. So people have to come out in person and get their votes in.
Awesome. So, the polling stations in the urban areas, Saskatoon and Edmonton, those will be on the same day on November 5th as well.
Yeah, yeah. So they'll be on the same day at the same time. They're going to close a little bit earlier than the Onion Lake poll, just because you got to count them and potentially transport them back to the community for counting with in front of scrutineers. So it's all the same day. We'll have all the votes that evening, and the results will be announced and posted the following day. They'll be announced that evening.
Awesome. Sorry, I have a window here and there's a lot of traffic. People
Oh, really?
coming
A
and
lot of
moving.
morning
Yeah.
traffic. People are
Uh,
getting up now.
yeah. Um. So next question. Um. Can you explain how voting works? For example, is it by secret ballot, and how are results verified?
So yes, voting is done by secret ballot. We've got the procedures here in the election law, which everybody can have a copy of as well. So it talks about the things we're talking about here today: nomination meeting, um, and ballots. So it does say that the ballots are done by secret votes. So secrecy screening will be provided at all polling stations, and then you deposit your ballot into a box. Pick your candidates, put it in the ballot box. Once that ballot box is sealed, once the polls are opened, once you close the polls, I will confirm that they're still sealed and haven't been tampered with, and then unseal them, and then proceed to count in front of the candidate scrutineers. Um, yes. And so during that counting process, Fraser, I'll have the discretion to determine whether a ballot is spoiled, and whether the vote is good. But generally, when it comes to all duties electoral officers, is to convey the will of the people. So some people are like, oh, it wasn't a check mark, or it's supposed to be an X, or it's got to be circled. But if there is a clear intention from on the ballot that shows who they really wanted, there's no reason to deem that ballot spoiled in my view. So yeah, so do the counting on transparency, and then and keep track. And then if they're within a certain amount of votes, or a tie, we'll recount, and then there's also, if there's a tie, we have a resolution mechanism to determine that tie as well. But there hasn't been too many records of ties, so yeah, that's how voting happens.
Yeah. A question just popped up here. I don't know if you could see it, but and you kind of touched on it just now. It
Yeah.
says maybe explain the tiebreaker. How is the electoral officer going to break a tie in the event of a tie?
Well, I think under the election law, it was up to the electoral officer, and in the past um, we've used to flip a coin, and I come from a rodeo background, and I've tied with people for first place, and we flip the coin to see who gets the belt buckle, right, or the thing. So that's just as long as it's a good coin, I'm sure that should be sufficient. But again, under the people can look at the election laws and have it peruse on there. There's a lot of good stuff. It talks about nomination meeting. I should wanted to say, going back, it says how many people you can nominate, right? But in the event of a tie, we're gonna go with the coin toss, I believe, instead of like a tug of war or a leg wrestle. I
Yeah.
think that's what we got down. But it's highly unlikely that we'll get a tie. I believe.
Mhm. Yeah. I think also eliminating like in the event of a tie, having like a revote or something, right? Like that's a whole long process in itself. And
It's expensive, yeah.
yeah, so it just makes sense to keep it simple, right? Keep it fair where everybody agrees.
Yeah. One thing I'd like to say, just looking through this, it reminded me of what you asked earlier, that these meetings are dry. They're dry meetings, so anybody that it just appears to be under the influence of drugs or alcohol or will be asked to leave the meeting as well. And this is under the election law. So, so that's just one other thing too to be aware of. It's a dry meeting.
Mhm.
But yeah, any other questions, Rachel?
Yeah, yeah. There's another one here on this. A comment from the viewers. Before I get to that though, just in the whole context of transparency and all that, I believe our program here, our live streaming and our public relations, I think will be mandated to be involved with the whole process. So we'll be there live streaming and
Oh,
kind of
great.
helping you guys out. So
Oh, that'll be good. That'll be good. I mean, that really helps for transparency and the integrity of the whole electoral process, right? We're not hiding anything. This
mhm.
is what the democracy of Onion Lake is right now. This is a snapshot of what people prefer for their leadership right now, right? So it'll be pretty good. It's exciting, like I
Mhm.
said. It's always a fun time, election time.
Yeah. So I have a question here from the floor. I'll read it out. um, is there people who will look into the ballot boxes prior to them being set out to ensure they are empty prior to being set out? And will there be multiple people in the vehicle during the transportation of the sealed boxes back to the community to ensure no one can stop and stuff the ballot boxes?
All right. Um, Again, getting this is a question towards the integrity of the process and the ballot. So to avoid that, I think we had this issue come up because one of our deputy electoral officers, it's a long day, right? When you're overseeing a polling station, you're there for setup at 8 o'clock. The polls open at 9, and yes, they are open, and people are witnessing them being empty prior to the polls opening, and then they're sealed. And then we'll get those names of those witnesses. We'll log that in our election report. And so getting back, so a long day. I was notified previously that the elections used to be held in June, so there's a bit more sunlight. But there's, to me, it's a bit of a safety hazard, I guess, to require one person oversee this polling station for 12 hours, 6 at night, and then do counting, or drive, or sorry, seal it and then drive couple hours from Edmonton, 3 hours from Saskatoon to the community. To me, that's just a little bit risky, but to maintain the integrity of the process, like we said, we got this live feed. I think we're going to utilize that so we don't risk somebody on the road. And then we'll do the counting and report the counting probably immediately after. So the transport of, and then I'll pick up the ballot boxes the following day for storage until after the election, the appeal period is run. So we really want to maintain the integrity of these ballots. There's not going to be any opportunity for tampering with ballot boxes or stuffing the ballot boxes. All right, because we've got strict control of ballots. Somebody can't replicate the ballots and stuff them into a ballot box. So this is part of the role of the chief electoral officer, the deputy electoral officers, is to uphold the law of the nation, which is international law now, and also the will of the community with integrity and a transparency process. So those, it's a good question, a good concern. But we've gotten measures in place to make sure that the ballot boxes aren't tampered with, that they aren't stuffed prior to the polls opening, and everything will go on record, right? So we'll have witnesses, we'll have scrutineers, and we'll have this awesome live feed for people to follow as well.
Yeah, yeah. Just so you know, we'll be sending you an invoice. just kidding. So we're almost done here. I have a couple more questions. Next question: how can community members stay informed leading up to the election? Is there a place where updates are being posted? I could help you out a little bit there. Your office, I believe, communicates with our CEO's office, and then he relays it to us, public relations, and then we post it on our social media pages and primarily our social media. There's a lot of engagement there. We have two pages that we run. We have the Onion Lake Cree Nation Facebook page, and then we have our Seven Generation page. So any communiques that come through your office will most likely flow through here, and people can stay up to date that way. I don't know if you have anything else you want to add to that.
Well, I think those exact same, besides social media, there will be everything that any communications that are approved by myself will be actually posted physically in the community in a spot that's visible. So there'll be posters in addition to the social media posts. But to stay up to date and informed of what's happening, people could also refer to the election law, which stipulates times that postings need to be made and stuff. So people can inform themselves by reading the election law to anticipate what is going to happen during this process, as well as keeping up to date with social media.
I just want to add to that, just for the viewers out there. Our Onion Lake website and our Onion Lake app is currently under construction. So, for unfortunately, the timing of this election, those two resources will be unavailable. So, just for the viewers out there to know, we'll be launching those pretty quick here. They're almost complete, so it could be any day. But right now, it's kind of looking like it'll be outside of this window for the election process. So, just something to note down. Moving on. I think we're done here. There's three last closing questions. I'll just read all three, and then you could just wrap it up from there. They're all related. Is there anything else you'd like to share or clarify for the community before nomination day? Where can people go if they have questions or need more information about nominations or voting? Any final message to the people of Onion Lake as we approach the election?
Okay. Just one thing I wanted to inform people of regarding the nominations. So, if we review the election law, the nomination meetings under Section 16, but also Section 16.5 and point 6, there's a limit to how many candidates a person can nominate, right? So here 16.5 says a citizen may either nominate or second a nomination for only one candidate for the position of Okima or chief, right? So you can only nominate one person for chief, and then a maximum of 4 candidates for the rest of council. So there's limitations on how many people you can nominate. Just to keep that in mind. People have questions about the election law and stuff. They can also email me, but otherwise, everything's going to be posted publicly. My email address is billy.turner@ytced.ca. But like, the election law is very thorough. I would refer people to that first prior to sending questions. So if they have any questions about the law, they can contact me. And it's an important part of time. Like I said, people got to stand up for their community. We've got to pick a new leadership to represent the community internally as well as externally to the rest of the world, the rest of the nations, the rest of Canada. So we encourage people to take part in this process, right? Because it's not a lot of communities have an election law like this, and performing the law is like performing a ceremony. You maintain that relationship, you perform it, you perform the law, which keeps it alive. So I would encourage a lot of people to really be proud of their law and take advantage and participate in the procedures.
Awesome. One last thing, I just want to go back to something you just touched on here. Just for clarity, limit of 4 people for council, one for Ogamau. That equals both a nominator and a seconder. Accounts
Yes.
for like 4. So you could say, for example, you nominate 2, you second 2. That's your limit right there. Whatever
Yeah,
order
for
that
council.
goes.
Yeah, and then yeah, exactly. So again, that's in the election law under section 16. People can refer to that and get that confirmed. So I want to remind people about that. Yeah, that's a limit.
Awesome. I think that's it for me. I
Okay.
want to thank you, Billy, for doing this. And I'm looking forward to meeting you next week, and hopefully we
Yeah.
can hammer this out of the park. And yeah, like I said, that's it for me. I don't know if you had
All right.
anything you want to close
No,
off
that's
with.
good. It was great. Thanks for having me. I look forward to meeting a lot of people in the community when I get out there here.
Awesome. Thanks again, Billy. I wish you a good day, and for all the viewers out there, thanks for tuning in, and we wish you guys all a good day. And yeah, we'll catch up again soon. Hi
All right.
hi, and Miyugi
Bye.
Sagan sick. Later,
Bye.
Billy.
Bye.